There we go. I heard him.
I hear him too.
I think some of the works was.
We ready now?
Yes, we're ready.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out and spending the time with us tonight. It is now 6:31, and at this time, I will call this commission meeting to order for June 10th, 21. And with that, we're gonna stand, and I'm gonna ask our former mayor, Mr. Dean Davis, to do an invocation for us, please. And then we're going to follow that with the Pledge of Allegiance.
It is an honor to be asked, and I'm glad to be here. Sorry that I'm as wasted away as I am, and my wife told me when my tie was too wide. I told her all my ties are too wide. Join me as we pray. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Lord, we invoke the blessing and invite your presence into the meeting of the city leaders. Thank God for all the blessings we've had in the past, all the blessings we are enjoying now, and the blessings we will enjoy in the future. Lord, I pray especially that you will bless the leaders. I know what they go through.
Yes.
Install within them what is the right thing. If we always do that, it's always the best thing, but it's not always the easiest thing. And I know that being a commissioner is not an easy job, but I thank God for people like the commissioners we have that do such a wonderful job and serve unselfishly for the citizens of High Springs. And I thank God for our little town that was at one time known as the friendliest little town in the state. And I'm not too sure it still is. I think it is. We have inherited so many wonderful people that move here to get away from something that's crowded and rushed. And we kind of got a little bit laid back, except the street that goes right through the middle. Bless us, Lord. Bless High Springs again and again, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Davis, we thank you so much for that prayer.
Thank you, man, for asking.
All right. Ms. Plum, can we have roll call, please?
Mayor James,
Here.
Vice Mayor Jones,
Here.
Commissioner Ambrose,
Here.
Commissioner Jamison,
Here.
Commissioner Williams.
Here.
Thank you. And at this time, we'll do an approval of the agenda, please.
I move that we approve the agenda for tonight's meeting.
I'll second that.
It has been properly moved and seconded that the agenda for tonight be approved as printed. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign, please. Motion carries 5-0. At this time, we will look at our minutes for approval from May the 27th, 2021 commission meeting.
I move we approve the minutes from May 27th, 2001 as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that the minutes from the commission meeting for May 27, 2021 be approved as printed. All those in favor respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0. Presentation discussion items. Item number 1. Presentation by Mr. Thomas Laurie, Renewables Manager, and Vanessa Goff, Director, Renewables Development of Duke Energy on possible solar power development.
Good evening, Mayor James. I'm Dorothy Pernew, Commission and City Manager. I'm Dorothy Pernew, your Government and Community Relations Manager, and it's our pleasure to be here today from Duke Energy. Your City Manager and I had the opportunity to speak a few weeks ago about a proposed solar project near High Springs, and she suggested that we bring information about solar power to the Commission for your information. Today we have speaking Tom Lowry, our Manager of Renewables, and Vanessa Goff, our Director of Renewables.
Good evening to the leadership of High Springs. Thank you for having us here in your beautiful town today. My name is Tom Laurie. I'm the manager of wholesale and renewable energy. I worked with Duke Energy for 32 years, all the way back when it was called Florida Power. I was still with the company back then. I'm based in St. Petersburg, one of those rush towns that I prefer every once in a while to get out of to visit something a lot more nice and calm like High Springs. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about solar in general, and you're more than welcome to ask questions as I go or at the end. One of the things about solar that's fascinating is, you go to the next slide, thank you, is how fast it's growing in the United States. So it has really taken off in the last 8 to 10 years in the U.S. And the Southeast, in particular Florida, was a little slower on the uptake. A lot of times, some of the other states, California, North Carolina, and Arizona had jumped ahead of us when it came to building and developing solar. But in the last 3 to 5 years, Florida has really caught up and started to overtake some of the other states. One of the reasons it took us a little longer was we're kind of the show-me state for economics on solar and other things. And there was a time when solar was not economic, and it took some time for it to catch up. Solar installations and manufacturing and labor and efficiency have all improved to the point now where it's on parity with a lot of other options that we have. And it is a mix of our power still. So across the United States, it's growing, and you can see on the chart there, I won't belabor this, it just continues to grow. Even during the pandemic, it continued to grow, and there might be a little blip here and there on delivery of materials, but in general, it's still one of the fastest growing energy sources in the United States. It's passed up natural gas, it's passed up wind, and specifically the Southeast, Florida leading the charge now, along with North Carolina, are states that have really taken the lead on that. Next slide, please. So specifically for Duke, we've had 2 programs. One we call the SOBRA program that built 700 megawatts of solar, and we're still in that process. And then there's the Clean Energy Connection, which we also call Community Program, which we're looking forward to building as well, another 750 megawatts. And these are sites, 75 megawatts, 74.9 megawatts at one single site. The reason Florida has that site, you'll notice nothing bigger than that, is we have a specific rule that says if you go to 75 megawatts, you have to go through some additional administrative proof of need. So everybody stayed pretty much below that, and the investor-owned utilities to stay, without that additional administrative need. And 75 megawatts seems to be a pretty good size for us anyway. That takes about 400 to 500 acres to build that. So one of the things that we're looking for when we look for a site in Florida is it near a transmission line? Usually we're trying to deal with one owner, And is it high and dry? And when you come to those three things, that tends to push you towards the middle of the state, and not always, but often up to the northern part of the state as well. Next slide. So this is kind of a map of where we're building, and we have built both our solar and batteries. And I haven't talked much about batteries, but you can couple them with solar, or you can have them on your own. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish with that. A lot of times we're propping up the grid with batteries, or we're using that to store solar energy till a time a little later in the day. Solar tends to fade right around the time we need it the most, around 5 to 6 p.m. So we're working with our grid to try to manage that as best we can, include batteries in that mix, along with our traditional sources. The few things that I want to mention about solar that are positives are it doesn't require a lot of water. It requires practically none, depending on whether you have a facility there for personnel or not. So imagine you have about one household of water use. Many people often will ask me, well, don't you have to clean the panels? In Arizona, they have that problem. In Florida, we just wait for the summer rains to come through and we're done. And by the way, that saves not only a lot of water, but a lot of cost. We have not seen a problem with doing anything different in the 5 to 7 years we've put in panels. So there's no water use needed. Construction jobs, it's about 200 construction jobs for approximately 6 months. And Vanessa will talk a little bit about that in more detail. It's very passive. So once we get through construction, we plant native grass. In this site, we're going to put about 30 acres of pollinator on the site as well. They'll help with agriculture that's adjacent or adjoining the area. So we set aside a place for just wildlife pollinators and handle that with putting it in the corners or on the edges of the solar site as well. And then we have about 2 people that manage the site occasionally. We also have a remote site that watches via camera to see if there's anything, as far as security. But in general, it's a very low maintenance type of facility. We have vegetative buffers, and Vanessa will talk a little bit more about that in detail. And it's a long-term investment. So Duke Energy's in this for the long run. We're looking at a cleaner energy future, and we look over not 10 years or 20 years, but 30 years out in the future. These sites tend to last for about 30 years, and we do have a plan at the end of 30 years on what we're going to do with the site, on how we recycle and bring it back to a green field that it was. Like I said, it's very passive. The panels are only about 9 feet tall, and there's a vegetative buffer. And then finally, it doesn't require a whole lot of services from the city or the county. And the fact that it's so passive, really, it has its own power. It doesn't require sewage unless you have a building here for just the personnel. And if you look at the area you're taking up compared to some other more highly developed areas, it's much lower impact. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Vanessa for the next part of the presentation.
Hi, I'm Vanessa Goff. Thanks so much for having us tonight. We're really excited to be here. I'm going on my 20th year with Duke. I've been through a few of the Duke reorgs, from Synergy to Progress to Duke, so I'm very happy to be in the clean energy section. I used to work in a coal plant and boiler engineer, so this is a very nice change for me. So just talking a little bit about how solar works. So the rays from the sun hit the solar panels, and there's photons that interact with the conductor inside the modules. It's normally something like silicon. And then that energy will be converted into an electric current that'll end up going to an inverter. So as it comes off the modules, it's in a DC current, and it'll change to an AC current in the inverters, and then we'll take it to a transformer, step it up to the voltage of the grid. It'll enter the grid, and then it'll be able to be dispensed to homes and businesses within our service territory. There's 2 different types of solar modules. There's both crystalline modules and thin film modules. For the crystalline modules, there are these solar cells that are made up of silicon, and then they wire all of those little wafers together to make a panel, and then a group of panels is called a solar array. With thin film modules, it's basically 2 pieces of glass with the semiconductor as a flat surface between the glass. As far as developing a project, there's different stages that we go through while we're developing our project. Tom hit a little bit on the prospecting and looking at the different types of land. We'll look for, like he said, nearby transmission lines, stuff that's flat, as little impact to wetlands as possible, which in Florida is sometimes a little difficult. And we'll also look at whether or not the grid would want additional generation there. So if all of those things kind of work out, then we'll start our early development. Well, we will negotiate land leases or land options with the landowner. We'll put in a request to tie ourselves to the grid. We'll do preliminary environmental field work where we'll look for different species and habitats. We'll look at wetlands. We'll do what's called an ESA phase 1 to make sure the soils aren't contaminated. And we'll also kind of look at, what if the soil is buildable. Once we get to advanced stage, it means we think everything is right with this site. Let's go through the permitting. Let's go and get our local permits. Let's get our permits with the state FDP. And then we'll start getting estimates and having EPC contractors bid on the project so that we can start budgeting it. If all that works out, then we go into construction. Construction is about 9 to 12 months. It depends based on how much preliminary site work we need to do to be able to get the site prepped for construction. And then we go into operations, which is, like Tom had said, we estimated life of 30 years on our projects. So the site that we have under consideration in High Springs is right adjacent to the city limits, which is why we are here and we wanted to talk to you all first. Like Tom said, 74.9 megawatts. The site is very nice, it's very flat, there's no wetlands, so no wetland impacts. We did a habitat assessment, and was the only thing that came up on that were Gopher Tortoises. They seem to be everywhere. I think I'd make a living if I just managed Gopher Tortoises here. So we have started to do some of that additional mid-stage development work at looking at soil and doing our surveying. We've been looking at making sure that we have room to put pollinators and landscaping and developing a site plan. And then we have been working on our interconnection agreement. Often when we are looking at siting projects, there's a lot of questions and concerns about the environment. Duke is a big steward for the environment. We do everything in our power not to have an impact. Some of the concerns are, main concerns that we've been hearing from folks are stormwater and stormwater runoff. We are required to get an environmental resource permit from the FDEP, which we basically implement all these best management practices to make sure that if there is a storm, that all the water stays on site and nothing goes off. There's also concerns about clearing of trees, and typically there is some tree clearing, but there's also a lot of tree mitigation and tree mitigation plans that we do follow. Like I said, on this site there's no wetlands. For the Gopher Tortoises, typically, or what happens is you need to do a relocation permit through the FDEP. And they find a safe home for them, and then you have a specific time of year that you can move them. An 100% survey is done prior to construction, and then throughout construction, we have biologists on site making sure that if we find one, we can take care of it and bring it to a nicer home. I know High Springs, there's a lot of springs. Again, solar is a very low impact land user. Once construction is complete, it's pretty much, it is what it is. Nobody's on there, we're not doing anything to the land. So, and we also have the protections during operations and construction for stormwater. And then finally, cultural concerns. We make sure we do thorough cultural analysis and talk with SHPO to make sure that if there's anything that comes on there, there's a proper plan in place to avoid it. So I'm gonna kind of skip this slide because Tom did a very good job of the benefits, but I always like to hit the benefits twice. The main is that I think solar, once it's operational, there is 9 to 12 months of disruption, but once it's operational, it's a very, very good neighbor, very quiet. So talking about the disruptive portion of it, So 9 to 12 months is what we give ourselves. The first part is doing the site clearing work, and the civil work where we put in access roads. We'll be putting in all of the silt fencing, to make sure, and any retention, requirements that are needed. Then basically and I'll go through, I have some pictures of kind of like each one of these steps coming up. So for trenching, they will basically take a big machine, and it'll put a trench, and then it'll have the cabling for the solar panels that comes behind it. Next would be the installation of the posts and the racking for the solar site. This is probably the noisiest part of the project. There are these pile drivers that just go tap, 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 tap. But it moves pretty quickly throughout the site. Then we have the most labor on site. So once we start to install the racking and install the modules for the mechanical portion, there can be up to about 200 people on site at one time. And a lot gets done in a very, very short period of time. There's over 200,000 panels that are installed on a 75 megawatt project. And then finally is kind of like wiring for the installation part, is wiring up the inverters, the modules, the combiner boxes, and then we move to commissioning, where we will connect to the grid, get back feed, make sure everything is safe, test everything, make sure it's performing the way it's supposed to, making sure everything is safe, and then we'll go into operations. We also do a lot of community outreach. So before we go for any sort of permit, we'll make sure we host open houses. What we like to do is have a few subject matter experts come to the open houses, set up tables, be there to answer any questions the community has. We try to make it interactive and not a presentation, because we want to know everybody's concerns. And then once construction starts, we send out mailers to all of the neighbors, letting them know what to expect, how long things are going to happen, and also give them contact information, so if there are questions or concerns, they can come and talk to us. So the first thing that goes up is the fencing, because you want to make sure that the site is secure and that somebody doesn't wander on that could possibly get hurt. So our traditional fencing is 6 feet of chain link fence with a security wire that's a foot tall. But we also like to work with communities, make sure that if there are concerns about that, we can make slight modifications as long as we're in compliance with our electrical code. What we spend a lot of time doing is making sure that the view shed is the same for all of the neighbors. So we do that by using existing vegetation, creating very large buffers and setbacks. And if for some reason there is not vegetation there and you are closer to neighbors, we do go through and do plantings and make sure that in time that the plants will grow in order to cover up the fence and kind of block the view of the solar site. This is just the construction trailers that are typically out there. There's 2 to 3 construction trailers, and then on the right side is just a site that's just been cleared and the installation of the roads are going in. This is that tractor that I was talking about that digs the trench, and then behind it, it'll put down wires into the trench. These are the piles being installed, so the big machines back there are called pile drivers, and they just tap the piles right into the ground. In the middle is the racking, and then on the end is the installation of motors. So the racking will follow the sun east to west to get the most radiance from the sun. This was a video, and we will make a link available to you guys, but we were installing our millionth module, and it's just a very cool little video that shows how easy it is and how like 2 people can install a module, clip it in, wire it up, and we will send you a link to that, but it's too big to send in an email. And then this is just a couple of pictures of the inverters, the wiring, and then the combiner boxes basically takes the wires from all module ends and combines them together, so we're running like a bigger wire throughout the site instead of lots and lots and lots of little wires. And then this is a typical point of interconnection where on with the two big concrete blocks, the left side is the generation substation that will take the power from the solar site and get it to the voltage it needs to be to go onto the grid. And the right side is where it connects to the transmission lines and goes out to the grid. I'd like to show this picture. This is one of our facilities called DeBerry. And it is located next to one of our other generation sites, and it's also located very close to a residential area. But I wanted to show it because I wanted you to see like the natural buffering that is existing. There's additional buffering, there's setbacks, and it becomes almost non-existent once it's operational. Some of the economics. So a lot of the benefits that we see for most of our projects comes in the form of property taxes. Florida has an abatement program for solar, and if we were to build this facility in Alachua County over 30 years, the county would receive about $12 million. So a little less than $500,000 a year in taxes, in tax revenue, which coupled with us not utilizing schools, police, water, sewer, and having any burden on the community. That is a very positive aspect that we think a lot of communities see from solar being placed in their communities. And also there is all of the construction jobs during that time of construction. We see an uptick in the local economy through like benefits to restaurants, hotels, stores, and things like that, because there are a lot more people that are in and around. Also, Duke is very involved likes to be very involved in the communities that we are located in, and we do have a big effort on giving in those areas. So just wanted to highlight that over the past 5 years to Alachua County, Duke has donated in different programs from education to veterans to nature and environment for about $500,000. And then post-operation, like Tom had said, we do decommission the facility. We have a recycling plan with our partners for the modules where they will take back modules and recycle them. So they won't just go to a landfill or stay out there. They do get recycled and reused. And then the other stuff like the cables and equipment and racking is mostly steel that can be recycled as well. And then we will make sure we remove all of the equipment and till the site and get it back to the use that it was prior to the solar system. That was it. If there are any questions, I know that was a lot of information very quickly, but I had a 15 minutes.
That's fine.
I got a couple questions.
All right, we got questions, yeah.
Yeah, thank you pretty much addressed it. My big concern is about wildlife, because we keep taking wildlife areas and they keep coming into the city. You talked about the gophers, but what about the other wildlife? Somebody other wild, the deers, the whatever, that's going, y'all going uproot out of there?
So yes, sir, you're right. I mean, it's 500, 700 acres that's putting into a fenced area. But what we do is a thorough study of any endangered wildlife. And we have one of our experts here to testify to that. So we go through all the proper channels to ensure that we minimize our impact. So is it better than nothing there? We both know the answer to that, but it does have a minimal amount of impact for that area.
Okay, yeah, and I do see you have the fence, because I'm concerned about with a harm if they get in there. But I see you said y'all gonna put fencing around it to keep most of your wildlife out.
Yeah.
Okay, and you did mention something about the open house for us, people can come and talk to the community. I see there's a couple of communities around there, Cinnamon Hill and other communities. So my last question is it gonna help me lower my bill?
That's a great question. Long term is part of our strategy. So one of the things So, and this is going to be kind of a politician's answer,
Okay.
but one of the things we're looking for is diversity of energy sources. And that means one of the things we're looking at is combined with natural gas as a resource for Duke, we have to have something else along that. And one of the great things about solar is it doesn't use any fuel, so it's immune to fuel costs. Now, to be frank, we don't have a lot of solar yet, enough to impact that. But in the long run, that's our strategy, to look at how we can balance those sources to minimize your bill.
And so that's your field out here in Columbia County?
Yes, sir.
27, okay.
Any other commissioners have a question?
Hi there. Thank you for coming tonight and having the answers. Just out of curiosity, after 30 years, why wouldn't you replace the solar panels or put in next generation solar versus decommissioning the site?
So if we own the site, we would do that. We would most likely do that, I guess I should say. I'm planning to retire in 30 years, so. So a lot of landowners, we find they want to keep their land, and what's happening is they have kids that are growing up and they want to have a secure future for them.
Okay.
So they want to have a lease, and so the leases that we execute are normally good for 30 to 40 years.
Okay.
As a follow-up to that, I think the desire would be, yes, we might, because what we've noticed just in the last 10 years is panel efficiency has really improved. So we might be able to lower that, 700 acres to 400 acres, depending on what the landowner wants to do. We would like to do options with that beyond that, and we might be able to get more than 75 megawatts at that site or reduce the site. I mean, once we put in that infrastructure, it'd be nice to keep it, but we want to give the landowner the option at that point in time on what they would like to do.
Okay. So your economics is based on the viability of your lease for the term.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
I got it.
appreciated over the 30 years.
I know I've been to all your other sites, and I definitely would have a preference of screening that's more than just chain link fence. And I do know that a lot of the plantings, they'll grow in, and a lot of work's been put in for landscaping, and the crews are out there for a long time working. I'm a little disappointed it's not in High Springs, so that tax benefit would be seen by us and the citizens. But one of the big things that you alluded to when you said this in terms of the environmental impact, but really makes me kind of support solar, especially in that area, is you're really protecting the recharge area. And that's really important, for keeping our springs healthy. And all around here, we have people coming in wanting to build and do what have you. And whether you left it agriculture or you built homes or did any other kind of use on it, we're going to see an impact in nitrates, whether there's a sewer system or whatever, or agriculture. If you put in a solar field, we remove that. So there's really a benefit, ecologically to this location and what you're trying to do. And I'm glad you've looked at this site.
It's one of the hidden benefits is the benefit to the water, either the aquifer or the not taking from the aquifer.
I just got one question, and that's good on this one here on the grounds maintenance. After you're in there, obviously you guys take care of the maintenance of it, trimming of the trees or the mowing the grass and so forth. That's yours.
Yes.
The only other thing I was looking at here on your construction schedule is it says the operation, vegetative buffer and pollinators are planted around this time. Are you going to plant full-grown trees? Because I'll be honest with you, if I'm a homeowner right there and you're going to plant something, it doesn't really concern me if it's going to take 20 years for that tree to get up there to block it. So, I mean, I'm just sitting there, I'm looking out, I want to see I guess I'm not going to buy a house so I can see solar panels. But I'm just curious, because you say you're going to plant it at the very end, which I understand. However, what are you going to plant? Because if it takes 10 to 15 years for the vegetation to grow, I may not be living there.
Yeah, So, I mean, it really depends on the weather of when we're gonna plant them, when the best time to plant them. So I know it says at the end of the construction, but I mean, we kind of work with the landscapers to say,
I
hey,
got
this
you.
is the best time to do it. And typically there are the 5-gallon bucket trees that grow, and we try to pick trees that grow pretty quickly within 5 years. They get to kind of natural, or get to at least, 6 feet. And it is very concerning. But one of the things that we are struggling with is finding a lot of native plants. There
Right.
seems to be a shortage in that right now. So saying, hey, we'll come in and plant natives that are full grown, I don't want to commit to anything like that because we know that there's a struggle.
But it's dense. Yeah, I would assume it's dense, that you're not putting the trees 20 feet apart and so forth. I'm assuming that the deal is going to be dense to where if I'm sitting there and I look, at some point, I should not see the panels.
Yes, which the minimum standard that we typically have is at 80% opacity. So it becomes very dense.
Okay. Thank you.
I have no questions. Very nice presentation.
So let me ask one more then. Is it maybe you
Go right
got-
ahead.
No, I was just, so what's the time thing on this deal here? I mean, I'm just curious. You've got this thing here. Obviously, the land's in the county. To be honest with you, I'm pretty dense on this stuff, so I'm just curious why you're here. Because it's not our land, it's the county's land, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm a pretty simple guy. So my first thing is why are you here? Because you don't need any approval from us, right?
No, we don't.
You're just doing it out of courtesy?
But we honestly, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we
That's
have,
fair.
we have been through Alachua County before and with other projects, and there is a lot of, we want to make sure we're reaching out to everybody, we're doing it as soon as we know about projects. And we are trying our best to be good neighbors.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm not trying to make a joke on it. It's not. I appreciate that because it does impact our citizens with the buffer and so forth, as opposed to you just coming in and doing it. We have no knowledge. So I appreciate it. I didn't mean to make light of it. Thank you. Thank you.
Do we have any questions from anyone in the audience?
Madam Mayor, I would just point out the presentation that has made estimates the annual tax revenues at about $400,000. Just as an informational item, that would be the ad valorem tax revenues to whatever local government receives this project. And I would also point out they're contiguous to the boundary of the city of High Springs. So to follow up on Commissioner Ambrose's point, that would be of interest, I would think. We'll talk to our manager and see if
Yeah,
certainly something there.
in our previous meetings I had prior to this presentation, they had talked about annexing into the city. Is that still on the table?
Yeah, it's on table, yes.
Okay, because I think if we're gonna have to live with the impact, then we would like to have the opportunity to consider that.
Anything else from the panel? All right,
Very well done.
anything from the audience?
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Dorothy, nice to see you again, 2 nights in a row.
And I say the same thing. All right. Kevin, do we have anybody on your end?
Madam Mayor, we'll remind anyone on Zoom if they'd like to participate and ask questions, utilize the raise your hand functions. And we see no hands at this time.
Thank you. All right, we thank you so much for your presentation. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we have no items on the unfinished business. So with that, we are going to move into citizens requesting comments for issues that are not on the agenda. And please state your name for the record and limit your comments to 5 minutes, please.
Good afternoon, my name is Doris Wright.
Good
I'm
afternoon.
only for 5 minutes. Right.
All right.
First question is concerning my water bill. For January, my water bill was $80.21. February, it was $34.80. March, it was $120.48. I kept calling her, but I could never get in touch with the manager. I went to talk to her about my water bill. So I requested that they do a check, see if I had any leaks. I wanted what they call a bucket test. They checked all that, no leaks. But they wouldn't give me no answer. So I told them I can't raise hell and y'all know that. I wanted to know what was going on with the water. She told me then that they would give me $20. I said, no, you're not giving me 20, you're giving me 40. Because I paid it because I didn't want no foolishness. Okay, then the next month it was $39.71 for the deducted to $40. Last month it was $80. This month it's $105. So I wanna know what's happening. No one there but me. It's not that I'm washing cars or doing gardening. Yeah, I have my water for my gardens and my flowers, but I have my own water. I get it from God. So tell me what's going on with these water bills. And I understand I'm not the only one that having this problem.
Do you want to talk to it?
So we found some, I don't want to say inconsistencies, but just some timeframes on when the bills were being read and the way they were being read, and it's been addressed. Some bills are getting read 2 or 3 days later than what they have been. So some months have been shorter, some months have been longer on the read date. So if your bill got read on, say, the 13th of last month and they didn't read it again until the 15th of this month, there's 32 days or 33 days on that water bill instead of standard 30. We've been working through that. We've had to do some organization of the books and some different things. We've also done a bunch of meter swap outs. Some of the RG3 meters and the Tesla meters we're purchasing, we've had some issues with. We've been replacing those as well. This is part of the reason we've been looking at the AMI program as hard as we have been, because it's going to be total meter replacement to give us a better way to account for meters. Rodney Hoffman's here, our Public Works Director as well. Is there anything I missed on that?
No.
So we've also got a new meter reader in, just doing some housekeeping. A lot of times we're finding that they're not being overbilled. It's just the way they were, at the time they were read and how the books were being handed out. So we've been addressing it.
So you wanna say from last month, what was $80, 105 is 2 days different?
That could be 2 to 3, 4 days difference, depending on when the meter was read, depending on water usage and what they were doing throughout the time. Now going from $34 to $120, or $39 to $120 would be an issue that we would look at. Now, I'm not familiar with this. I haven't spoken to Ms. Wright. I haven't seen any of the water accounts, so I'm purely speculating here without looking at the bills, without looking at her account. But we've had several issues that we've been addressing.
Can I ask you to please take a look at hers, please? Because she's mentioned this to me several times. This is not the first time. So I think we need to pay closer attention and see what's actually going on.
Yeah, and we've been doing some aggressive adjustments, and we've been managing it really well. My city manager and myself have been working on it pretty hard, and Rodney's been helping us with it as well. It's just I haven't seen this account, so I can't really speak to it without looking at it.
Okay.
Mayor?
Yes.
The question I have, if we verified there are no leaks, so we also verified that it's a meter that's reading accurately, especially if it's an older meter. So as you go into the bill, I guess I'd just be interested if we are looking at that at all.
So what we'll do is we'll go back and look at it. It's one that we're able to pull data logger on. We'll pull it. We'll look at usage history as well. There's a couple of things we can look at. In a lot of these cases, we have replaced the meters and then let them run it for a month just to kind of see where we're at and then make adjustments from that point as well. We just ordered, or we're in the process of ordering, 100 meters, Jason? So we got 100 more meters coming in right now because we are having some issues.
Okay.
So we've been, like I said, we've been doing some really aggressive adjustments with this, trying to get it right.
Okay.
So in the meantime, I got to suffer. Y'all doing wrong. I got to pick your mistake.
Well, first of all, ma'am, nobody said we did wrong, and nobody's accusing.
Somebody did.
Nobody's doing wrong. It's a mechanical device that needs to be changed out and calibrated on a consistent basis. There's some things that need to be looked at. I don't know where the issue is. It could be a software glitch on the backside, which that would be our problem. I don't know. So without looking at the history, I need to look at it and come back to you. I'm not saying you have to suffer at this point in time. I haven't spoke with you. But normally what we do is we tell them not to shut your water off. We hold the bill. We go through and do a whole bunch of research, and then we'll sit down and talk and run through everything, and we'll make the adjustments as needed. But you've already paid your bill at this point. We will go through all that. We'll get everything. We'll make further adjustments as needed.
Okay, the other thing I was talking to you about, I called about my, degree. Okay, they just don't pick up my trash. Then I found out I need to put the little pieces in a bucket or something. Okay, but I got 2 big cans, garbage cans of leaves. They've been out there over two or three months. The only time they pick up my leaves is when I call them and they get on them. They haven't been picked up since the last time I called them here. And I got 2 big cans out there, not trash cans. They don't want to pick up the ones on the ground, why they can't up the trash cans. Something ain't right.
I did call and talk to Amy about that today.
Commissioner Ambrose and I have had multiple conversations in reference to this because there's been debris left all over town. There's some issues with the contract with WCA and some verbiage in there. The city attorney's office has been reviewing that. There's some caveats in there that says it has to be less than like 3 square feet or 5 square feet, and anything over that requires bulk pickup. And then if they're coming to get it, and bulk pickups are only done twice a month, and that's something we're knee deep in right now. I can let Commissioner Ambrose elaborate some more on some of the things we've been discussing too.
And the penalty's not very much either
Yeah.
for when they do wrong, so there's no incentive for them to do right. And then the way the contract was written, it's hard to just get out of it easily. So that's why we've been working with the city attorney's office. But prior to this, even, we've had multiple meetings trying to get them to do what they're supposed to do. And we're still working on that as well, so.
I would just, you are not alone, and you're not the only one that has had issues. I know I've been talking with city staff about what some of the options may be for, how we rectify a variety of valid complaints and changes in really what's been, we've hired a contractor that's supposed to provide a service, and the service element of their operation in our city has diminished greatly.
Yep.
The downtown trash cans, between the downtown trash cans between the holiday and when they got picked up finally on Saturday would be another example of where they are not servicing our citizens. So, because they were overflowing all week long from Memorial Day.
It's been going on too long. It wasn't
Yeah.
a holiday. It's been going on
Oh,
3
A
months.
long time for you. Yeah.
I have 2 piles on my street, actually 3. One of them has been there over a year.
Yeah.
Piles of what?
Yard waste.
Really?
Yes.
And WCA is not notifying us like they should in the contract. So if there's an out of compliance pile, like there's an issue at her house, they should have notified us. They're not doing that. They're just driving by and keep on going. We've had issues with, I know we're way off topic, this will come up very soon, is we've had issues with recycle bins and just in the middle of the roadway, people fall and hit.
Yeah.
Trash cans left in the road.
Yeah.
Not though, it looks like a whirlwind comes through when they come through town.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen cleaner
I've been
roadways
out
after
to
a
that.
hurricane than trash day comes through.
Mhm.
So, but those are my 2 big things I've been working on is water meters
Yeah, the 2
and
things.
trash. And that's 99% of my time.
Yeah.
But I hear on both of them. I'll jump on your water issue next week when I'm back in the office. We'll get it rolling. And well, I have your address out. I'll give it to WCA as well and get those leaves picked up.
Thank you.
Well, just to let you know, the city's had issues too. They came and switched out all our dumpsters and gave us smaller ones, and they've been overflowing on and off too. So, without telling us, so the citizens aren't alone. They're impacting everyone, and we're
When is this
working on it.
contract up?
So you know what that means the next time when you get.
That's what I just asked. When is this
Oh,
contract
yeah.
up?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, it's not like 2 years.
So didn't
2024.
Yeah.
Didn't WCA, didn't somebody buy out from WCA? Did
Yeah.
they come to take over?
Mhm.
Yeah, I thought so. So I guess that contract's still good, whatever the company that.
Yeah,
They vote the contract.
I'll let, do you want to talk?
I believe it is. Andrea is talking to WCA right now, and we're trying to find out exactly what happened. Did they merge? Was there a new ownership group that came in? What specifically happened? So we'll find that out. My assumption is that the contract will be an ongoing and continuing contract till contract end. The key is communication. Regardless of what happens with the existence or the continuation with this contract, we need to really endeavor to put them on notice. When you have problems for a year like that, we need to make sure that we are notifying them, and we shall see what the responsiveness is. And there are provisions that are default provisions in the agreement. So if that continues and it's not rectified, then things build as the evidence builds, and as we go through this and time goes on, and there's not a responsive situation, then there's early termination provisions as well.
I thought so.
Oh, yeah, there are. We just have to.
Yeah, and I thought also that when, in this last contract, we put in there some kind of way, if they didn't do what they're supposed to do, we can start finding them, or they should give them money.
Right.
It's in there,
Well,
but there's a huge window they have to respond.
exactly.
And so it basically means that if they just did nothing and over the next 2 weeks, they happen to take care of it, there's no penalty.
He's exactly right. So what happens is if there's something they've left trash out, they don't have to come pick it up same day or next day. They have till the next trash pickup. So if it's bulk waste, you have 2 weeks or more. And then if they don't do it and they get fined, it's very minimal. And the way to get out of it was not as strong as other contracts in other cities. So I think it's a more unless you disagree, I think it's a more difficult one than the standard type of contract cities have, to just be able to say non-performance, and we've had several discussions and weekly, if not daily, communication through the Public Works Department, and they've been keeping a very specific log for a very long time. And it's just to the point where they're just not responsive. I mean, we're a small city. Do they do work for larger cities? We're not as high priority. I mean, that's what I think at this point.
Yeah, we were working with Rich on some stuff, and this is part of my topic email to get with you on next week on the set up a meeting for further discussion.
Good.
What Rich and I were talking about, just to get us to stuff, because there's a lot of things in there, and the contract refers to previous bid packages, and it's, without getting into a whole lot of detail in the meeting, it's just, there's a lot of things we need to discuss, because the performance side of this is not getting back.
Yeah, we've had enough communication at this point to know it's at the level to elevate at this point.
Okay.
So, I know this is citizens comments, and we're not supposed to do a whole lot, but I guess my question would be is if it's this bad, if we send any documentation to them, if we sent them a letter putting them on notice, you say you have things documented, but have we sent them something in writing? Because if they have received nothing in writing, there's nothing there. So I mean, if we haven't sent something, a phone call isn't going to fly.
We've had multiple meetings with them. This is part of the conversation with Scott next week on that next step of where we're at. But we feel like staff that we've exercised everything in that. Now we're ready to move to the next level.
Okay, I don't disagree with you. I'm just saying on the deal is, as long as they've been communicated with and they've received and you got documentation where you can show it, some point in time within that contract, I have multiple type of things. If we've documented it, say goodnight, Irene, we're going. So, I mean, I'm just saying, phone calls is enough, but.
I think that's where we're at. We're on to the next level.
Yeah,
Okay.
We've had several, phone calls, data logs, several in-person meetings where they've been given the opportunity to fix it over and over again.
I thought there was like a 60-day out if one of them, if we had a deal. Well, then we need to tell them to take a hike. Okay. A citizen's comment, we're not supposed to.
Yours is.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Let me go down there.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? All right, Kevin, would you please check for me?
Madam Mayor, we'll remind folks again, if they'd like to speak to this or any other issues with the commission, please raise your hand. Seeing no hands at this time.
Thank you. Okay, we will close out that section and we will move on to new business.
Madam
Consider,
Mayor, this is a-
discuss, and act on ordinance 2021-04.
Yes, ma'am. This is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended pursuant to an application LDC 21-04 by the City Commission relating to an amendment to the text of the Land Development Code, providing for amending Table 2.02.01 entitled Allowable Uses in Zoning Districts by amending zones for operation of mobile food vendors and adding zones for operation of food truck parks, amending Section 7.09.30 entitled Mobile Food Vendors, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-04 upon its reading by title only.
All right, comments, commissioners?
I have a presentation too, if you want.
Absolutely.
All right, so I just kind of wanted to talk about what's in this ordinance, so, you know, y'all have your chance to hear from staff kind of why we wrote it and what it entails and how it will be administered if you approve it. So the reason this came about was because state statute changed within the last year or so, and cities are not allowed to permit mobile food vendors anymore, but we can still regulate them. So, and we have to allow them to be permitted by right in somewhere in the city. So cities that say, hey, I don't want any mobile food vendors, that's not an option. The other reason was we have had interest in food truck parks, not just from the gentleman that you heard speak at a previous meeting, but other people. So if or when those come forward, we needed something as staff to look at as far as site plans are concerned, to be able to review those adequately and ensure the health and safety and welfare of the community. So those are the main reasons why. So in the ordinance, we seek to establish land use and zoning regulations, provide health and sanitation regulations, and there's more discussion on penalties. But so far for penalties, we can revoke their site plan approval for the food truck parks. So we, for mobile food vendors in the ordinance, we will require them to get approval for temporary outdoor sales. So we are not giving them a permit, but they still need to get approval from the city. And, or if it's in coordination with a special event permit, we can revoke that as well. Or we can start the code enforcement process. And tied into the code enforcement process, not only would the mobile food vendor have to comply, but the property owner. So even if the food truck drove away and wasn't here, you could still get the property owner for the violations that occurred. So, okay, we can go to the next one. So there's two parts of the ordinance, the section on the food truck parks and the section on mobile food vendors. So basically for food truck parks, the regulations for if there's 6 or more or 6 or less mobile food vendors, 3 food vendors constitutes a food truck park. They require conditional use approval, which means conditional use comes up through the plan board and then to the commission for approval. So a food truck park cannot come in without y'all hearing it, seeing it, decide if you want it. So we put that in there. They are permitted in all commercials and industrial districts if they get the conditional use permit, and certain planned development districts. What I mean by that is if it's a planned development district that allows restaurants or alcohol sales, then they're allowed to be considered for a food truck park and come to y'all for a conditional use permit if you want to grant it. A site plan is required. It has in the site plan, previously we didn't have anything in there as far as parking spaces, requirements of what needed to be on the site plan. So it would be very difficult for staff to review it and hold them to things that they should be doing. So that's in there now, as well as information on that they have to provide restrooms if they operate 4 days a week or more. If they operate 4 days or less, they just need to provide permitted restrooms, which are restrooms that aren't, I guess, structures on the site. They're the restrooms that are more portable. And hand washing station, regulations for solid waste disposal, recycling, collection of gray water, as well as the parking spaces, and that they also have to give us for the operations a designated agent or team to handle operations. So we have someone to go to and coordinate with that's supposed to be managing the site when there are issues. The mobile food vendors, these are the vendors that are temporary, that only come for a few days and leave, such as at the brewery. And they are permitted in all commercial and industrial. They are permitted by right, but again, they have to come and get approval that they can operate still, although it's not a permit, it is approval. And they are allowed to be a part of special event or school event. And they basically, for every property, one, they can apply for, and the property has to be developed, they can apply to have a food truck, one food truck park, and not more than one can operate on a single property in any given time, except in the case of a special event or school event. And they can operate up to 4 days and no more than 3 consecutive days in a week in the case of special event. They are subject to certain hours of operation, and they are required to be moved daily. And then it provides more regulations for nuisance, trash, debris, waste, loud noise, glaring lights, anything that could create a nuisance, as well as the same health and sanitation requirements as the ones in a food truck park. So that's kind of what's in here.
Mayor, I was very pleased. I read through it and it's very comprehensive. I don't know why the state said that we can't permit them anymore, but at least we do still have some control. So in reading through it, it's very detailed, and I would be willing to approve it.
Well, Andrea with Scott's office did a really good job. She's the one who did the majority of this. So, and we went through like 3 rounds. So.
She's becoming a food park guru.
I remember when way back when yes.
That's right. She's really got a real specialty in this area. But what happened is I think that the food truck lobby, they have a very powerful lobby with our state legislature, and under section 509 of the Florida statutes, the permitting for food trucks is now under the Division of Restaurants and Hotels. So it's preempted to the state, as our manager said, and we can do the policing and the permitting with respect to sites. We just can't permit them any longer. That's the gist of it.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
I work with a lot of food trucks in Columbia County, Suwannee County, and a couple here. And as I read through this ordinance, I had some questions and talked to Ashley, but a lot of the things that I see as less than ideal practices in other areas are addressed by this ordinance. And I some food trucks might push back a little, But I like the higher standard, because it really does promote some best practices.
And Commissioner Ambrose was involved extensively too. He gave me knowledge I had no idea about food trucks, so.
All right. Anybody else? Audience, comments?
We have one.
My name is Robert Geiger, and I'm one of the owners of Spins right across the street. And several of you, after the presentation for the food truck park a couple of months ago, came and talked with us and other merchants because we were blindsided. None of us knew about it. And I still have a concern with, because I don't understand how we can't, just as a business owner, it's potentially a threat. It's not just my business, but to merchants downtown. I know primarily with the food truck park that they wanted to put on Main Street, my opinion and the opinion of other merchants that we talk with, it would be detrimental to all of downtown.
Right.
Because we want people to come downtown and park, shop, eat, and leave. It's free money. It's clean money. So I see this as a threat to a lot of the businesses, not just me. So I'd like to talk with some more of you later to get a clearer understanding, because it's been a tough year and we're just now recovering. And the idea that and they are businesses, is kind of an opportunistic thing. And I'm sorry about, I didn't think I'd get emotional, but it is a personal thing. And I would like to talk to some more of you to get clarity of what this really means to the city as a whole, but to the downtown merchants.
So it kind of it tightens it up more. It makes it more stringent than what we had previously. So the mobile food vendors, because of the regulation state statute that recently came down, they're permitted and we have to permit them somewhere. So the most we can do is put an extra level of approval on them. If we don't, then they can just do what they want. And so that's what this did, was try to put some stipulations on them. Now, is there always ways to make it even more stringent? Yes. And could we come back and amend it and make it more stringent? Yes. We kind of fell in line with what other cities were doing. As far as the conditional use permit for the food truck park, that's a good thing, because before, since when you don't have regulations, then they have more of an argument to get to do what they want, because we don't have anything in place for them not to. So making a conditional use permit requires that all the property owners within 400 feet are notified, and so they'd have to follow all the same steps as if it was any zoning case that came through. So that really gives them a lot more hoops to jump through.
And when I hear the term food truck park, is that going to be like a permanent location, or they can kind of move around to accessible areas, or?
It would be a permanent location, and so that would have to be approved by the commission. So the commission didn't want it, or just thought it wasn't going to be good, because so if they came for a permit and then y'all would get notified through the mail, because people need to check their mail, but we would try to do like extra notification as well, because we know that the community, it's an issue within the community. So we'd make sure the word got out. So then there would be public hearings on it and everything, and then the commission would have the opportunity to vote for it or against it, based on if they thought it was good for the community or not.
And for those of you who did come and talk to the downtown businesses, we appreciate it more than you can imagine.
Madam Mayor, for the gentleman's purposes also, you have the federal law that typically supersedes state law, and then you have state law that supersedes local law, city or county law. And when our legislators passed Section 509 of the Florida statutes and preempted the permitting to the state, we don't have any choice in the matter. It's preempted straight to the state, and the only thing that we can do is then regulate those types of activities to the best we can under the regime of the state law. So there's really not a lot we can do in the totality. We can only measure a piece of this as far as our regulation goes. And I would also offer to the gentleman that the food truck parks, they are required by our ordinance to have infrastructure. It's not the same as a restaurant. I think everybody understands that piece of it. To build a restaurant out is a substantial investment of infrastructure, no question about it. But we do make them hook up to the electric, water, sewer. They have to have those features if it's available to the placement of the food truck park. And then in addition to that, there has to be solid pads. There has to be, as our manager said, restaurant or restroom facilities, hand washing station, that sort of thing. So I think we're doing as much as we can do in order to regulate this type of use.
Well, I think what I gathered from the deal is almost like there's a foregone conclusion, this permitting thing, and there wasn't a whole lot left to do. Well, I guess I would say wrong, even though it's permitted, it's still going to have to come here to get
Correct.
approval.
Correct.
So while we can't not do the permitting, before they're out there just scouring, a route, it still has to be approved here.
And we will keep very close eye on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the
Yes.
mobile food vendors would be approved at staff level after they met all our regulations. So just like the one person at the brewery or the special event mobile food vendor, but the food truck park would come here and they would go through zoning to be able to allow it, and then they would go through site plan approval too.
Thank you.
So,
I appreciate it.
and there were things, Mayor, if I can,
Sure.
like the scenario on 27 between here and Bev's. Let's say that there were an art studio and a restaurant holding an event, and a food truck decided to pull up and park on the free parking on our public street and take advantage of the crowd that was gathered there. That's actually not permitted
Oh.
in this. And if the owner of that chain, strip mall area didn't want them on the property, they wouldn't have the ability to set up shop or use the public right of way and take away from businesses. So, this is a good first step in providing some control and yet also providing, the opportunity for food trucks to be a part of things here in High Springs.
Because I just know that the takeaway from the presentation a couple months ago was not
Right.
something that was agreeable, so.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Totally different. Any other comments?
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jeffrey Connolly. I'm a resident of High Springs. I happen to be the volunteer husband for a restaurant owner in town. I knew the state already superseded the local ordinance, and I knew that we were going to have food trucks. My question is a food truck park, I know it's going to have to go through a lengthy process, and it'll take a while before it gets up and running. With regards to the mobile food trucks, what is the approval process on our local level to issue them a short-term license for a weekend? So if they want to come up for 4th of July weekend, what is the process at this point for a mobile food truck to set up? Do they have to have in place an agreement with the commercial site owner? Because it has to be more of the C1, C2, C3, or an industrial site. So walk me through that process, because I have more of a concern with regards to the food truck just popping up and siphoning away potential foot traffic. So what is that process?
Bruce, can you talk more to the process, like the one at the brewery? Because I've not been here through all of that or had one I've had to deal with.
Well, the one at the brewery fell under the old ordinance.
Yeah.
And we went through a licensing process with them, but basically the process is they're gonna have to provide, so they went into a contract with the brewery had to provide it for them to go on site. We had to go in and we did fire inspections on those facilities. We had to run through, make sure they were up to snuff based off of what at the time was Department of Professional Business Regulation standards. And there's a process they have to go through with that as well. Under the new ordinance, I'm assuming that process didn't change in this ordinance. I haven't really reviewed it.
No,
So they would have to go through, they have to get approval, we'd have to go to the inspection, and it's just, it runs through there, but anybody that's on another site on a commercial piece of property has to get approval from that business owner.
yeah, so the new ordinance includes all of that still. It's just not like, here's your permit. It's more, you're approved.
Yeah, they have to license, they have to,
Yeah.
everything has to meet what the state has required them to have. And then we also look at all their suppression equipment, their extinguishers, look at all their generator, propane tank, what the DOT requirements are. There's a whole step we have to go through. The
Yeah.
original thought process behind it was we were gonna give them certificates like we would any other business. We'd run them through that process. That was more of a way for us to be able to track it than it was trying to over-regulate, if you will. But like the person that's down at 340 selling firewood for the weekend, he had to get approval from the business owner, had to bring it to us and get permission to go there. It'd be a similar process to that.
Okay,
So-
so the property owner needs to come to you or have a written notification to the food vendor.
Yeah, they would have to give written notification to food vendor. They would have to let us know, and then it has to go.
And how long is the process? Can I be a food truck and say, hey, I want to do something this weekend?
You would typically need to get something the week of, and really by a week before would be best, because we're closed on Fridays and Thursdays. Sometimes we're very short staffed, so it's tough, we need time to review it. So a week would be good. And we'll have, do you want to do it shorter? I mean, we haven't.
No, a week is good. It really depends on if I have a fire inspector available.
Yeah.
The biggest thing, there's myself and only 2 others, so depending on
When the ones that are on shift are working, to get over there and look at it, but a lot of times, it could be done realistically within a week, but there's things that have to be verified.
Yeah, well, we started with you just coming up to planning, because that's up here in our office, and Bruce is with fire, so we would know of it immediately and could get on it. But we will be long-term putting something on the website and a phone number, so that
Right.
if we have somebody come in and formal things to fill out, and a list of things that we need from you. So once this is approved, we're gonna put all those procedures and processes in place that correspond with this ordinance. But the difference is that, it is a little more strict, whereas, you can't park on sidewalks, you have to be on a, designated space on the property owner's site. You can't just go on a piece of grass that doesn't have a building. And the property owner, if something's done wrong, the property owner is also held liable. So if you go out there and dump grease or gray water or leave trash and debris, then it's not just a mobile food vendor who can drive away. It's the property owner that has to be compliant as well.
Mayor, Mr. Connolly is not looking to put a food truck out there.
Okay.
That's not his concern.
Okay.
He doesn't, he's interested in, you said that there was a food truck that set up and they had the art exhibition down here or
Well, no,
something?
that was an hypothetical.
Oh, okay, I thought
So
you said somebody did.
hypothetically, if you go to open your business and at 11:30 you see a food truck pull into the parking lot across the street, that would be in non-compliance.
I'd get on the phone and call.
We need a phone number on that site that if you are concerned about a food truck coming in, that they can call and say, hey, was this okay by the city?
What you don't want is somebody pulling up wherever your wife's pulling up. I'm just saying, pulling up and stopping because there's a lot of people in here. Let me just stay here for 30 minutes and serve them.
Right.
I get where you're coming from. I understand it. It's got to be more of a permanent and a process, which you were saying, I know you were talking about. So when they say a week, that's not irrelevant to you. You want to know what the guy who's driving the food truck, the process he went through and the time it took him to be there.
Right.
Right, right.
It's really the same process we follow with any special event
Agreed.
in town. So we're not singling, they can't say we're singling them out because it is every mobile food vendor. So we do need a realistic amount of time to be able to get in there.
Agreed. But I think he was just wondering if somebody shows up,
Right.
what is that?
As a city, we're not issuing a permit, but we have the oversight who's coming into town.
Yes.
And with what zones are gonna do.
They don't have a license from, say, special business, hotel and restaurants or Department of Health, or their suppression systems expire, they're not gonna be allowed to set up.
So then, somebody hear about, we having a special event in High Springs on 4th of July. I'm a vendor. So, okay, I'm gonna go to High Springs and set my mobile truck up. So what's going on? Nobody's working on the weekend. So how will we regulate something like that?
That's where code enforcement comes into play too, because code enforcement will have a list on that and be able to handle that. But we do get calls on the weekend and do address them.
And if it was an event, then they would have to get a special event permit through us. And as part of that, you know, we would know that the food vendors are coming and could plan for that.
But what I'm saying, I got my special permit.
Okay,
So Barbecue Joe,
yeah.
see that I'm having this event in High Springs. I'm gonna drive my truck over here and sit up for
Oh, okay. Yeah.
a day and make me some money. So how will we?
I think I hear you, but I think there's always chances, and I'm not gonna do it, there's always chance for people to scam the system. And that's what you're basically saying is the guy scamming the system. That's gonna happen. What we gotta do is make darn sure if something's out there, somebody calls and say, hey, look, and then the code enforcement comes into play to come out, and this is an unauthorized vehicle or business to be here.
And believe it or not, it actually self-regulates itself. We get a lot of phone calls,
I would
like the mobile produce vendors that set up on the side of the road. We get phone calls all week long. There's various different setups. And we do our best to get them to account for that week. And if we can't, we make note of it if we missed them, and then they come back, we didn't make that a priority.
Myra, you brought up a good point. Are we giving them some thing they need to hang in their window, or should we have something that if they went through this process, that when I walk up as a consumer to the truck, that I know that they're gonna approve of the High Springs?
Point.
I mean, we can. I don't know if that would fall, giving them a permit though, what it's got. I mean,
There's a whole number of conditions that we can regulate, the conditions of use and operational standards on mobile food dispensing vehicles operating within the city. If they're on private property, they have to have a notarized affidavit signed by the property owner indicating that the vehicle has permission to operate. And then on the property, the affidavit must indicate that the property owner acknowledges the following requirements. Solid waste disposal has to be specifically addressed. Property owner has to meet all applicable federal, state, local statutes, regulations, and ordinances, i.e. all the fire items that Bruce just said. The property owner acknowledges and understands the regulations of mobile food dispensing vehicles, and that the property owner himself will be responsible for any violations. Property owner shall ensure that the property will be continuously maintained during the period of time that the food truck is there in a neat and orderly manner, and that it's operating as a temporary use. This goes on and on and on. Okay. These are the issues that we can regulate. It's all delineated in the ordinance. As Commissioner Ambrose said, we're trying to do what we can do to make sure that everybody operates in a fair manner. The one question I did have though is, how is Barbecue Joe's ribs?
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
I think, Scott, not to belabor the point on this one here, I think if he's got a business and a food truck pulls up and it's over into the corner, he would like to be able to walk up to see that he's got something, that he's done all this.
Exactly.
Is what he's saying. He's not on a private property. He's pulling up off the street over here and getting it.
Right.
And what he's saying is, I just like to walk over there and see that there's something posted that basically says they did the process.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? He's not pulling on private property.
Right.
So I do think in that regard, I don't know how complicated that gets, or if it's even that frequent of a deal to do, but I think that's where I think that's right. I don't want to speak for him. I think that's what he was referring to.
We could do like an inspection card for it, just like if it's been inspected, so we've had the fire inspector, here it is, but make sure this is on your dash. That would be simple when we're over there doing it. The other thing to remember too is we can't allow any of the food trucks on any DOT right away or any mobile vendor. So anybody they see that, let us know because they gotta be told to leave. So if they're on DOT right away, which we have a lot of it here in town, they're not allowed to do that.
Right. You know that. I may not know. I'm just saying, I may not know. The average person may not know that. They just see that this food truck's pulled over and they're serving people.
And that's why I said it on public record, so more people would know.
Well done. We rehearsed that all afternoon. Good job.
All right, do we have any other comments? Yeah, that's what I'm asking from the audience.
You should, everyone needs to read the section on gray water that Commissioner Ambrose helped me with. It's very impressive.
Oh, geez.
Ashley wrote it. She just listened.
Kevin, would you check for us, please?
Madam Mayor, we'll remind folks again if they want to speak on Zoom, to please raise your hand and we'll bring you in. Seeing no hands this time.
All right. So we need a motion.
I move that we approve ordinance 21-04, text amendment to the land development code.
I will second that.
All right, been properly moved in second. Ms. Pond, is roll call here?
Mayor James,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Okay, motion carries 5-0. All right, let's move on to item number 3, consider, discuss, and act on ordinance 2021-05.
Madam Mayor, this is an ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the City of High Springs Land Development Code, Appendix B, Article 2, zoning districts and special uses, Part 2.02.00, land uses allowed within zoning districts, Table 2.02.01, allowable uses in zoning districts, providing for severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance 21-05 as read by title only.
All right, we have
Okay,
presentation.
yeah, we have a presentation and it's a little longer than the last one because the table of allowable uses, it was obvious it hadn't been updated in a long time and it desperately needed it. So we added new uses to the table that over time there are new uses such as different names for things. There were things that needed to be combined. There were things that left some exposure for the city. And so we wanted to correct that. This is kind of the second part of the table amendments that we did a previous meeting that y'all approved that ordinance where we had site plans go to you for approval, preliminary final plats. I think they already were, but it wasn't in the table. So this is kind of just also a cleanup thing. But there were a substantial number of changes in the table. So how it works is there's a list of uses for different categories: residential, commercial, industrial, all of those. And we go through those and determine what level of review they'll have. So when you look at the table, if there's a blank on the table, then they're not permitted anywhere. If there is a P, they're permitted by right. So they can just come in, they don't have to go through zoning or anything, and they go straight to building. If there's an S, it's special use. That means staff can review it and I can sign off on it. If it's an SE, it's special exception, which means it stops at plan board. So I review it, then we make a recommendation to me and Christy and maybe the site review team. And then they go to the plan board, make a recommendation, they make a decision, it stops there. Conditional use then comes up to y'all for approval. So a big part of it, similar to the other table, is getting more things up to you. And the example I always use is that I actually could approve a multifamily project in my office by myself. I thought that was pretty wow, I'm not doing that. So we want to go through and kind of clean it up a little bit. And I would like multifamily to come to the commission, not me. So for, and it was so substantial, I didn't put every little change in here. But I put, I think, the ones I think you really need to know about. I mean, they're all important, but we would have been here all night. So for residential, we deleted attached residential line because that's similar to duplex and multifamily that was already in there. It was duplicative. There was a line for mobile home and class A mobile home. We deleted the mobile home because no mobile homes should be coming in that aren't class A. So we changed class A mobile homes. They're allowed in R1 and R3. So on the zoning classifications, R2 and R3 is more dense than rural estate and R1. So what that meant was they were allowed on small lots. And so we changed it so they were allowed on the bigger lots, not the smaller ones. And they still have to be approved with my sign off, making sure they meet all of our regulations. And that's how they were done before. Mobile home park changed from conditional use in C3 to conditional use in RE, which is rural estate, so that we didn't just have, so C3 is what is like 441. A lot of the highway use. So we didn't want a mobile home park on 441 as you came in, unless you do, we can change that back. Duplex changed to conditional use in all residential zoning districts. So that means anyone who wants duplexes, just like multifamily, has to come up to y'all for approval. Because we didn't want people to be able to put just a bunch of duplexes wherever they wanted without coming to you. Multifamily was changed from special use where I could approve again to y'all approving it. Multifamily as accessory use to business. So what that is kind of the, if someone wants to do residential downtown, they want to do like an apartment over the, a store, or something that they could, so that was changed from special use where I could approve that before to special exception, just so plan board would look at it, but it doesn't need to come up to y'all because there's going to be different things that sometimes it makes sense and other times it doesn't, depending how people do it. We deleted the temporary emergency residences because when you do an emergency order, you're typically allowed to just do what you need in those cases anyway. So we didn't want people saying certain things weren't, and we didn't want to just open it up. We wanted that to be under the control of the city, what was allowed when you put emergency orders in place. The accessory dwellings permitted in residential and commercial currently only are allowed in R3 and commercial. So we allowed the accessory dwellings to be permitted in residential and commercial. So we actually expanded that because a lot of people are wanting to do mother-in-law suites and different things. And so they would still have to meet any distance requirements from primary structures and setbacks and all of that. So that's how you have that protection there. Okay, so hotel, motel accommodations, previously they were allowed in C1, C2, and C3 as conditional use. Oh no, that's how we changed it to being allowed as conditional use. So they would all have to come up to y'all for approval, any hotels or motels. Previously, they were allowed as C2 as special exception and C3 as special use. So I could approve a hotel motel by myself on 441.
I don't think so.
I know. And so, I mean, this position had more power than I even knew. And bed and breakfast, we merged that into one designation. There was bed and breakfast residence and bed and breakfast inn. And again, a lot of these don't have definitions for them. So what you typically do is you revert to like a definition in that AICP uses. And we will be getting those in the land development code as we improve it too. But so that's why it gets confusing if you don't have the definitions to have two things that are similar. So we combined it into one. Can you go back? Because I can't remember what the rest of that said. And we allowed it in all residential. It's permitted, but is conditional in residential. So they'd have to come to you because they're not all going to be the same. Because one of the reasons for that is a short-term rental issue. Then anyone could say, oh, it's a bed and breakfast, it's permitted. So that's why we had it come up to y'all. Okay. Institutional, this is where we added new categories because a lot of people, there's now different kinds of institutional, especially for seniors. So we added independent living facility, assisted living facility, and memory care facility, and we allowed those in the commercial. Okay. General sales and services. This is where it was going to get really long if I went over every single line item, and we would be here all night. So I tried to pull out the most important things. And I just want you to know, not just me, Christy. Christy did a lot of work on this. So couldn't have gotten through this without Christy. So we separated the sales and rentals of goods into two designations, inside and outside. So inside is permitted in all commercial by right, but outside, if someone's gonna do something with a lot of outside storage or sales, it needs to come up to y'all for approval as a conditional use. Because you'll have people try a lot of things that can look really kind of junky if you don't, manage it. We combined the designations for convenience stores into the ones with gasoline and without. So the ones without convenience stores with no gas are permitted in C2 and C3. So that would be downtown along 441, and conditional in C1. So C1 is this like little neighborhood serving area that's very small. So because it butts up into a neighborhood, we like the way where it's situated, we did conditional in C1. So that's what we did for that. And and then we added the following designations. So all these were designations that people come to us about, and we didn't have any. So then we're having a staff to kind of guess, well, would this fit, and where it doesn't really. So alcohol sales and package store, we made those conditional in all commercial. So anyone that wants to do a store like that has to come to y'all for approval. Tobacco shops, we permitted it in C3, which is the designation along the highway. Conditional comes up to y'all. So all other commercial, like if someone wanted to do a tobacco shop downtown, they would have to come to y'all for approval. Tattoo and body piercing, which we've gotten some interest in that. We said it's permitted in C3, but conditional in C2 and C1. So downtown, you can't just put a tattoo shop in downtown without it coming to y'all. Gun range, we added that, and it's conditional and industrial. And then we added terms for microbrewery, regional brewery, brewery pubs, and tap rooms. And so the microbrewery is more like the brewery we have in town. So we had it permitted in C1, C2, and C3, so that they can just go in there, but it's conditional and industrial. The reason for that is we were trying to keep industrial more to the industrial uses, and that's more of, depending on how it's done, it's not always suited for industrial as much. We don't have very much industrial land, and we wanted to preserve that industrial land for real industry. The regional brewery, now we did that conditional in all commercial and industrial. The brew pubs and tap rooms, which is, a tap room's just like where they just sell beer and not much food. Brew pubs are just like your bar and food. So we permitted that in all commercial. And then prefabricated shed cells was not in there. So we made it conditional in C3, because that's like a lot of outside storage and industrial. So if someone wants to put up a big prefabricated shed cells, they need to come to y'all for approval. General sales and services, pawn shops were permitted in C3, and as well as some other districts. So we can change it to conditional in all commercial. So a pawn shop can't come without coming to y'all for approval. Banks with drive-up windows changed from special use, which meant I could approve it in C3 to permit it in C3. that's along 441 where it should fit. And conditional in C1 and C2. So, C2 is a lot of the downtown. So as far as anything coming with a drive-through, you kind of want to have an opportunity on that. So manufacturing and wholesale industrial, the thought process on this, and Commissioner Ambrose helped me on this too, that was that, we want to keep the industrial because there's not much land, and that brings in, needed businesses as well as industry that can help us with our daytime population. So we separated warehouse with storage outside and parking of vehicles and storage of equipment outside. We changed that from special use that I could approve and special exception. One of them was special use I could approve, and the other was special exception approved at plan board, to conditional, where that comes up to y'all again. That outside stuff all needs to come to you. We changed the water bottling plant and bulk handling of water from R1, that was in residential, to that would need to be an industrial, and it would require a conditional use permit coming up to you. We added the mining and solar farm, which was discussed today. We added that. That's a new one that requires conditional use to come up to you. And then there were a variety of commercial uses that are more retail oriented that we took out from the industrial, so we could, again, keep the industry in the industrial. There was some heavier industrial that currently is permitted, was changed to conditional, and lighter industry was changed to permitted in there as well.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Mayor, are there, I don't think Airbnbs were addressed in this. Do we have?
I stayed away from that because there's so much state law surrounding it that I really need more research into that. I didn't want to put anything on here that I need to research that further, and then we can add it on here after we do, because I want to work on that with the city attorney's office.
It's another preemption area.
Another one?
Another preemption area.
Oh, okay.
Oh. That's why it's not on there. I didn't want to do it wrong.
Okay.
There was a bill that was gonna be really preemptive, and that got defeated. But the lobby groups keep coming back to the state with it, and the state is whittling away at what we can and can't do with that industry.
I have a real concern with that because of neighborhoods having to contend with people coming in and out that they don't know. And I wouldn't want it in my neighborhood. But if there's no control over it, it's going to be, I'm sure it's going on right now because there's no control. But I just think it's something that we need to take a look at.
Yeah, we are going to, because it is something that impacts us with the Springs and everyone wanting to do tiny homes and short-term rentals, and they come about it in really creative ways, right, Christy? Where I'm like, they want to do what? How is that a good idea? That's kind of our day.
Yeah.
All right.
Mayor, I had just one question on,
All right.
for churches and other religious structures, they're permitted in all zoning areas. And just the question I had is that required, or?
There's like federal law on
Okay.
that,
Federal.
and that's why I kept it as all
Thanks.
permitted. Yeah.
It's a federal statute.
What's the definition for a dance studio?
Your garage.
You gotta shake it. I don't know. We still need to work on all the definitions. We're gonna put those in the land development code. I could see that. That's a good question. Like, I thought of it more like a dance studio for like youngsters or ballroom dancing. I didn't think of it as a nightclub.
Well, there
'Cause a
is a
nightclub would
designation
be-
for that, adult use and sexually orientated businesses, goes all the way over to.
Where's that one at? I'm curious, because this,
It's on, it's on a page number, it's, arts and entertainment,
oh, okay.
arts, entertainment and recreation.
Yeah,
It's-
Okay, I see
it's
it there now.
C, yeah.
Okay, now you make me feel better now. Okay. I feel much better now. All right.
Any other comments up here? Any comments?
A lot
up
of
here?
work, I know it's a lot of work, this is very intense.
Honestly, well, Christy and I went over it several times, a couple times, and I have to give her credit. It wouldn't have gotten done without her.
It was something, I can't remember what, it was something to do with, what they call it? The, like a casino thing, I forgot what they call them.
Oh, the game
Chaos.
rooms, the game
Up to
rooms.
chaos.
No, not game rooms. What
Internet
do you call somebody? I heard
cafe.
Internet
somebody-
cafe.
I heard somebody out there, okay.
Cafe.
You would know.
So that's not addressed?
I think we left that one out. That was one of them we forgot. We can put it, you can say you approve it with the condition of adding internet cafes
Right.
and where you would want them. I mean, I think if you want them, or if you don't, just put it on there and we'll have it, no letter on it.
Yeah.
Or you could have conditional use or something coming all the way up to you. I don't know much about them. I really
just read the
don't know
headlines,
anything.
You know?
I don't know what
Scary.
they are. Like, I
Yeah,
really
it says
don't.
He asked about it, and you're saying about putting it in there, if it's not in there and somebody comes up.
Yeah,
Then we have to do kind of what we did with the food truck park, then we have to
That's what I'm
come
saying,
back.
so, I mean, you
Yeah.
would address it at
Yeah.
that point in
Yeah, that's-
time.
We
They
say we
wouldn't
don't
get-
have it.
They wouldn't get it because it's not in there, it would be addressed at the time,
I
correct?
don't know what our current state attorney, he's, in my view, very close to Bill Cervone's position. And Brian Kramer was his first assistant state attorney before he's a state attorney. So I think his view is going to be very similar to Mr. Cervone's view, and that is that these are not games of skill, they are primarily games of chance. And so they are prohibited, they're gambling facilities and prohibited. So that's why we don't have internet cafes typically in Alachua County. And some counties do because we have different state attorneys around the state, and they enforce that concept a little differently. But that's, the view has been not opening up anywhere in Alachua County.
okay.
So I suspect that's where we're at.
Anybody in the audience? Comments?
Madam Mayor, there's no hands on Zoom.
No hands on Zoom. All right, with that, we'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept ordinance 2021-05 and approve as presented.
Second, okay.
She got it.
Okay, it had been properly moved in second that ordinance 2021-05 be approved. Go ahead.
Vice Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Commissioner Williams,
Yes.
Mayor James.
Yes. Thank you. Motion carries 5-0. All right, let's go to item number 4. Consider, discuss, and act on ordinance 2021-07.
Madam Mayor, this is ordinance of the City of High Springs, Florida, amending the official zoning map of the City of High Springs Land Development Code as amended, relating to the rezoning of 10 or more contiguous acres of land pursuant to an application Z21-01 by the City Commission, providing for rezoning from R1 residential to public, semi-public, P/SP of certain lands within the corporate limits of the City of High Springs, Florida, repealing all ordinances in conflict, providing for severability and providing an effective date. The appropriate motion is to pass ordinance number 2021-07 as it's read by title only.
Okay,
Thank you.
as you can see, this is for Memorial Park located along 441. Basically, it's zoned residential right now, and staff is asking to put it back to public, semi-public. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, that is the use. So the current use doesn't match the zoning. So to get that situated, the other thing, because there's not only the park there, there's also the water treatment plant. Some of their facilities are on there too. The other reason is we do have interest from the next tower, telecommunications tower, so we couldn't locate that on there if it was zoned residential. So this gives us the option to bring that to you for consideration, which you could still turn down because you would be selling them the land. And that is, we wanted that as an option to try to get the tower further away from neighborhoods, because it is in an area, the tower needs to be within a certain area, and Bruce can talk more to that.
If the land wouldn't be sold, it would be a lease to the company, it'd be a long-term lease, which would generate revenue for the city. And a lot of that stuff we work out in the contract, but the initial proposed property, if you're looking at the map, is on the east side of the road, just east of Kevin, we're right there by the Dollar General, which is gonna be right at the entrance of Edgemore. So we look at it, this has to be put in a certain circle radius for them. And well, we didn't want it at the beginning of Edgemore, we didn't want to have a whole bunch of C2 commercial property right there. So with the way the public radio system works, we looked at relocating it to the far end of Memorial Park. There's a site there that'll work for them, and they're working out some contract stuff, and it'll be coming into commission if y'all go for it.
So the tower is going to go there.
Not on that piece of property that's highlighted on your screen.
Okay, that's what I was,
That was where they originally
okay,
wanted to go.
right, uh-huh.
So they're, basically what it is, they go out and check radio frequencies and where the best reception points for them are. And this is for public safety radios that the fire department and the police department.
Right.
And there's a small circle, there's a tower site across the street that was being used, and they need to relocate it. That tower site at some point is coming down, or is being decommissioned, or whatever the deal is with their contract. If we look at right behind the water plant, we need to close that road anyhow there.
Mhm.
So that'll help with that as well. It's not really a road, it's just kind of a cut through. So where Kevin's got it highlighted on that west side of Memorial Park, right there where you
Okay,
draw the
okay, yeah.
circle, that would be a general area that we would look at. Leasing
Okay.
them a small piece of property.
I thought so, but when you highlighted the area, I thought maybe it'd come back to there.
So it falls within the radius that they need to put the tower in. It gets out of the entrance to Edgemore. It takes it off of a good piece of C2 property for some future growth. So with doing this, we felt like relocating it down there. It kind of ties into the water plant being there, and it'll sit there for the next 30 years and will generate some revenue.
And generates revenue.
Sound good. All right, any other comments, commissioners? Any comments from the audience? No hands on Zoom at all. All right, motion please.
I move that we pass ordinance 2021-07, rezoning of Memorial Park from R1 to P/SP.
Second.
It's been properly moved and second that ordinance 2021-07 be approved. Ms. Palmer?
Commissioner Ambrose,
Yes.
Commissioner Jameson,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Mayor James,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Jones.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. All right, next item, number 5. Consider, discuss, and act on agreement with Florida Rural Water Association.
Okay, you have 2 items in front of you. One's for wastewater, one's for water. They're pretty much identical. There's a little difference in cost, but we have Sterling Carroll should be on Zoom, who prepared this presentation. I believe Captain Van Zant's there as well. They're both for Florida Rural Water. So we've been working with Florida Rural Water for the last little bit. They've done the third well design for us, which is currently out to bid. We should know what the cost of that's gonna be at the end of July. They're currently working on our asset mapping and tracking and a bunch of other projects for us at no cost that really needed to be done over the last couple of years. And then we went back to them and said, hey, we've been looking to do water and sewer master plans. We've seen numbers, 180,000, 250,000, and we've been trying to explore options to get the cost down on this. So we went to them, they put a proposal together for us. It came in really reasonable on the cost. The startup is minimal in the beginning. To start the project on both of them, they're both 5,000 each to get it going. It's more of an a la carte approach, if you will, kind of as a pay as you go. As we go down the list and get services, we'll pay those dollar amounts. And then if it's one of those things where funding becomes an issue, we can hold it. We'll finish up where we're at and we can revisit again if we need to and keep moving forward. With that being said, when I said 180, 250,000 is some of the numbers we've seen up to 160. The water plan, we're looking at, I think it's 30,000, and then for the sewer plan, we're looking at 33,000. I could have swapped those numbers, it could be vice versa. But to get both projects rolling, we're at like right around, we're at 5,000 to start this contract on. Much better cost in the grand scheme of things versus what we were looking at before. This provides us a facilities plan. This helps us with our CIPs. This helps us with our water and sewer master plans. This will give us future direction on where we need to go. These plans will be updated regularly. And essentially what we're gonna have to do is take all that information we got from Florida Rural Water anyhow, and then go to somebody else and say, here, put this in data. And then start building the plan from there. Working in-house with Florida Rural Water, trying to keep this all together is gonna make it a cleaner plan as well. They're not gonna try to decipher somebody else's information. So I do have Sterling Carroll on the line, who is their engineer, I believe, and Catherine Van Zandt as well, who we've worked with closely. Our public works directors here as well, as well as our water foreman.
And one more thing, it also will help with grants. Some of these things some of the projects we'd like to submit for, we really aren't in a position to submit for it because we don't have the information. So this information is required for some grant submittals. And so I personally believe this will help us get one or more of them somewhere down the road and end up paying for itself.
And some of these facility plans are also required for state revolving. So, if anybody has any questions, we can direct them to Sterling Carroll at this point. Let him speak for a minute. Mr. Carroll, you on the line? See, there, Kevin. He is.
Okay, can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I apologize. I had turned my microphone down just in case I did a FUBAR. So anyway, you have approached the state revolving fund already, and we're doing asset management. The state revolving fund is paying for the asset management for both water and wastewater. And that's a free service that the state revolving fund will provide for the city, and that will come into the engineering group, and then we'll put together the proposals, or actually the request for inclusion and the facilities plan that will go straight into construction or into the applications for the state revolving fund for both water and wastewater. So it's a dovetailed approach, as you've heard, and also the High Springs will actually see a lot of savings as well as efficiencies with this plan.
He's probably waiting
He's
for
waiting
some
for
questions.
questions?
Yeah.
Any questions? Sorry.
Okay, there we go.
What's the time frame? I mean, the time frame from like, if we say, okay, you know, when would we have this water plan complete, assuming we have funds and want to keep moving forward with it as fast as we could?
I think in order to complete the asset management plans, 3 to 4 months worth of work, because they'll be identifying and inventorying all your assets, your infrastructure, and trying to also what needs to happen for replacement and rehab and upgrading of that infrastructure. The engineering portion will probably be another 3 to 4 months. So we're 6 months to 8 months out.
Okay, thank you.
Which would get us into the realm of actually being able to submit for the February hearing, public hearing for the state revolving fund. So we could get listed on February 2022.
Any other questions?
No, I'm just glad to see that we've pursued this, we've been active towards it. This is what we've been looking for. So I mean, I'm happy to see that we've made positive strides and we're going in the right direction. So I appreciate it.
I agree.
Anybody from the audience?
The mayor will remind folks, if there's anyone on Zoom that would like to speak, please raise your hand. There's no hands at this time.
No hands at this time. Okay, thank you. All right, so we need a motion here.
I move that we approve the agreements, both agreements with Florida Rural Water Association.
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been properly moved and seconded that the FRWA assistant agreement be approved. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
Those opposed respond same sign. Okay, all agreed, 5-0. Item number 6. Consider.
Sandra. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Consider appointing Cassandra Davis to vacant position on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Well, in my opinion, we'll be lucky to get her.
I agree. Absolutely.
No doubt about that.
So, I mean,
We don't even have to discuss that.
yeah.
This one could have been done 8 years ago.
Yeah. I would definitely move we appoint Cassandra to the open position on the Parks and Recreation Board.
Do we need a
Do we
motion?
all agree on this? Do we need a motion here?
Is that your motion?
Yes, that's my motion.
Second.
Okay, it's been properly moved and second that Cassandra Davis be added to the position on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. Till November. Okay. Everybody understand, till November. All those in favor respond with aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries 5-0.
Great.
All right, let's move on to the city attorney's reports.
Madam Mayor, just as a reminder, all the city attorneys in our office, except for Mr. Folds, are going to be at the Florida Municipal Attorneys Conference on July 8th. I promised him if he covered the High Springs meeting that we would take it easy on him. So just as a reminder, so if we can make it as.
We make it easy.
If it's possible, we would like to do that.
Remind me like right before the agenda is supposed to go out,
I will.
because I'll forget.
It sounds like a pretty good bargaining
Yes.
tool right now, actually.
Be kind.
Okay,
That's
city
all.
manager.
Okay, so we have the High Springs highlight out.
Yes.
Yes.
So we recently had the flag football, adult flag football. with 30 teams. So that's a pretty big deal. And, you know, our department's not big. So for them to continue pulling all this off, we got a good team here. And High Springs Volleyball completed its season last May. We had some heroic actions by our High Springs officers. They had a call for suspicious activity. They had to force entry into the bathroom of someone's home where there was an armed suspect in an altered mental state. And they disarmed him and detained him without using any lethal force. So they did a really good job, and we're very fortunate that we have such a great police department that does things in the right way. As well, there was a write-up on the status of the GAI Community Redevelopment Plan, but y'all received that at the last meeting. And the High Springs firefighters participated in Career Day at First Christian Academy kindergarten class. And I also wanted to point out, there's a picture of the men today working on the water main break at 243rd Street. Let's see where we can, oh, there it is on the bottom. That is what they do. I think when I first started working here, they were doing that every Saturday and Sunday for a month or two. I mean, it was every weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt like I wasn't even worthy. Because being a girl, all I can do is stand there and go, good job. It's like, I am so helpless.
Well, I don't see the director in that picture.
Right? You were directing it?
They just do a wonderful job, and they're always there when we need them, and that's your employees at work today.
So I got a couple things. We have Third Well, as I said, is out for bid. Bids are due July 22nd. So we should have a good idea where that's at. We've talked to some people, the financial advisor about financing that. We've got some numbers that will be able to come, probably the first meeting in July without Scott here, be able to come back and get that approved. Kind of the goal. With that, we have the water line project, CBP project's going on, it's going strong. That project's going to be delayed. It's gonna take some time. Water pipe is just getting harder and harder to come by. So they had a 180-day window on the contract. We talked about this last meeting. That's been executed. I think we extended it till the end of the year just because we're 8, 10, 12, 15, 16 weeks on pipe, depending on when they order. So there's gonna be some delays in there. AMI is not dead. We're working on some stuff with legal right now, trying to get some things together. I believe they've determined we have to go out to an RFP for that. So we should be getting that together here in the next few weeks and get it out a bit as well, so we can have that come back. Just because of the issues we've had with some of the meters, you heard one tonight. There's been quite a few that are coming back. We're finding some of the Teslas or the RG3 meters are not doing well in this Florida weather at all. The screens are starting to crack. We're starting to have some issues. They're still reading right, but manual reads are harder. So just some areas that got to be addressed, some things we're working on. Worked with PD on a few things over the last couple of weeks. They've done some security upgrades and some different things. Things are going well. We're moving forward with a lot of positive things. You may not see it, but there's a lot of positive things going on behind the scenes right now. That's all I got.
All right, do we have any announcements? No? All right, Commissioner Ambrose?
No, nothing, although I will say, I guess we were all given the key to the city tonight.
Yeah, we
With
got
our
key
new
to the
With our new
city.
key
To
cards.
City Hall, anyway.
Yeah, so.
Commissioner Jameson?
You'll lose it.
What do you want me to do with this?
Put it on the board to get in.
And put it around your neck.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's what the
that way you
lady
won't
is
lose it.
for.
Put it in your wallet.
You know, you did when you was a kid, you had to put the key on you, so you don't lose the house key?
We didn't lock the doors.
Well, that's why you came back in that time. Okay, yeah, you,
That was
okay.
a long time ago, man. We didn't lock them. No, I have nothing, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Williams?
Farm Shell called and said they'd like to come in August. You can give them 2 dates. Let's see what's on the calendar.
Yeah, I'll check with staff. I mean, right now, is there any reason we can't just open August up to whenever they want it? Is anything going on in August? I guess 2 dates, I guess it's like 7th and the 21st or 7th and the 28th. They're spread apart so people have some time to eat some of the food. Do you see what I'm saying? Maybe the 7th and the 28th?
28th?
Yeah, the 7th and 28th. That way there's time and they need to get more food.
No, they don't want to come twice now. They just give 2 days, you choose one.
Pick one.
Let's do it every weekend. Okay.
My knees won't take it.
Bruce, is there, I mean, do you know of anything?
That stops it.
Yeah, I mean,
Here you were. So when's your national night out? You do that?
It's gonna be on August 3rd, but middle school.
Yeah, start back very early.
When school start back?
Start.
The 9th?
It's like the 10th or,
Y'all come back.
it's like the 10th or something, is
For
there?
the teachers, and I think the next week after that.
We try to do the 7th would probably be good.
do you think we
Maybe
should
Before.
we do the 7th, or are people gonna be school shopping and stuff and not show up? So then maybe just,
School shopping got to be done.
I'm 21st.
I won't either.
do you wanna do the 21st or 28th? That way they've
It's
kind
got to be
of gotten the weekends around when school
Yeah.
starts done.
Okay, so the 21st or the 28th?
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I have.
Vice Mayor?
Speaking of WCA, we had a bad, not a bad incident, just I walked the dogs and there was stuff all over the road and we had to push back cans and all, and my husband sent a request to our assistant city manager, and last week, I gotta tell you, it was perfect. Nothing was on the roadway and the cans were back away from, and so whatever you said to them, they did. And we also have had a complaint about the speeding and the way they turn around at our intersections is, the asphalt is eroding, so they've calmed that down as well. So just wanted to let you know that as far as that area is concerned, they did a big turnaround. But we still need to look at their contract.
And let's hope they stay on track.
Really, that's it.
That's it. Okay, then I don't have anything particular, except to ask Jenny, are these that you left for me?
Yeah. Yeah, we had made some, but they were all noted in the presentations.
So you want,
No, ma'am, those aren't for signature.
gotcha, okay. All right, well, in that case, then I can entertain a motion. So moved. So moved, meeting adjourned.